My name is Maya Reynolds. I promised myself I'd never say this out loud, because saying it makes it real. The people who hurt me the most were the ones who were supposed to protect me. One night, in front of 200 people, my own family turned my pain into entertainment, and they smiled while doing it. I remember the warm Scottsdale evening, desert heat still clinging to my skin after the sun had gone down. Palm trees wrapped in soft white lights swayed gently in the breeze. A live jazz band played slow, classy music, the kind that makes you feel you should be sipping champagne in a movie. Valet parking was filled with Teslas and luxury cars I could never afford. This wasn't just a party, it was my father's retirement gala. 50 years in corporate real estate. Half the city owed him favors. People flew in from California, Texas, New York, just to shake his hand. Everyone looked confident, successful, like they belonged. I almost didn't go. Standing in my apartment, staring at my reflection, I asked myself, why am I even going? But my mom's voice called earlier that day. Soft, careful. Just come, Maya. Be supportive. Then, smile, and please don't make it about you. Her words should have warned me, but I went anyway. I wore a simple black dress. Nothing flashy, nothing dramatic. I didn't want attention. In my family, even wanting nothing still makes you guilty. The moment I stepped inside, I felt it. A shift in the air. Conversations dipped. Smiles tightened. People looked at me, then quickly away, like they already knew something I didn't. My brother Ethan noticed me first. Perfect suit, perfect posture, golden child confidence. He lifted his glass toward me, didn't walk over, didn't hug me, just watched, like I was part of the background. I grabbed a champagne flute, didn't drink it, needed something in my hand to hide the shaking. I stayed near the back, near the exit, already planning how early I could leave. Then the microphone squealed. My father stepped onto the stage. Tall, relaxed, in control. The kind of presence that makes a room go silent without asking. He thanked his colleagues, joked about long nights and big deals. People laughed on cue. I stood there, unnoticed. For a moment, I thought maybe that was it. Maybe I'd survive the night. Then he said my name. And of course, my daughter, Maya. My stomach dropped. Heads turned. Every eye landed on me. He smiled. Not a father smile, a performer smile. We're all still waiting for her to figure out what she wants to do with her life. Laughter rippled through the crowd. Polite at first, curious. I forced a smile. My face felt frozen. Some people are born leaders. He gestured toward my brother. Applause. Ethan nodded, pretending humility. And others, he said, are just trying things out. Laughter grew louder, real laughter. My chest tightened. I searched for my mom. She stood near the front, hands clasped, eyes forward. She didn't look at me. At least she's consistent, he chuckled. Consistent at failing. The room exploded. People laughed, some clapped. My ears rang, my vision blurred. This wasn't a joke. This was planned. They wanted witnesses. They wanted me small. I placed the untouched glass on the table. My hands were steady now. Anger does that. I turned, and I walked out. The desert air hit my face, warm, dry. I inhaled deeply and let go of something I'd been holding for years. That night wasn't the end of my story. It was the moment I stopped begging to belong and started planning my exit. What I didn't know then was that my humiliation would come back to my family in a way none of them could control. After I walked out, I didn't go home. I wandered the streets of Scottsdale. The city lights blurred through my tears. Every laugh, every whisper from the gala echoed in my mind. It felt like the world was mocking me, and in a way, it was. I found myself at a quiet park, empty benches, soft rustle of palm leaves. I sat down, hugging my knees. I let the anger and humiliation wash over me because denying it would be worse. I realized something that night. My family, my father especially, they had created a story about me, a story I was supposed to live up to or fail in front of everyone. And that story wasn't mine. It was theirs. I clenched my fists. I felt the first spark of something I hadn't felt in years: control. If they wanted to see me small, I would show them strength they could never imagine. I didn't know exactly how yet, but I knew I had to leave, and I had to plan it carefully. I walked back to my apartment as the night deepened. Street lamps cast long shadows on the pavement. Each step felt heavy, yet with every step I felt lighter. I started drafting the first rules of my escape. No one would know until I was gone, and when I left, I would leave on my own terms. Memories of my father's words kept replaying. Figure out what you want to do. Some people are born leaders. I repeated them to myself, not to hurt me, but to fuel me. Every insult became a stepping stone, every laugh a challenge. I called my best friend, Lara. Her voice was soft, concerned. I didn't cry. I just said, I need to disappear for a while, plan my life, my way. She didn't ask questions. She just said, I've got you. And that was enough. I started researching quietly: cities I could move to, jobs that didn't need connections or references, money I could quietly save. Every detail became a piece of the plan. Every moment I spent alone was preparation. At home, everything was normal: family smiling, dinner conversations. I sat there, a ghost in plain sight. I listened, I learned, I pretended compliance, but inside, I was planning. There were nights I cried silently, alone in my room. Hurt and betrayal threatened to crush me, but every tear also strengthened a resolve I hadn't known I had. I wouldn't be a victim anymore. Weeks passed. I gathered resources, contacts, places to stay, job applications. Each small action felt dangerous, thrilling, liberating. I was becoming someone new, someone they could never humiliate again. I started keeping a journal. Every insult, every laughter, every painful memory, I wrote them down, not to relive the pain, but to use it as fuel, to remind myself why I had to leave and how unstoppable I would become. That chapter of my life was over, but the real story was just beginning, and soon they would see the daughter they mocked was no longer the one they controlled. Weeks of planning had passed. Every conversation, every dinner, every smile from my family felt like a test, and I was ready to fail their expectations and succeed on my own terms. I packed in silence: clothes, documents, essentials, everything neatly folded, no mess, no trace. I wanted them to see nothing until I was gone. The night I chose was quiet. Street lamps flickered outside my window. I slipped into the shadows. Every step was careful, every sound amplified. I could almost hear my heart thumping in the silent night. I made it to my car, keys in hand, engine started, GPS ready. I didn't look back. The house was behind me, and so was the past I refused to live in. As the city lights faded, tears came. Not of fear, not of sadness, but of freedom. The taste of it. It was intoxicating. I realized how much I had longed for this moment, how much I deserved it. But freedom came with risk. They didn't know I was gone, and if they found out, chaos would follow. My father's pride, my mother's control, my brother's arrogance, all waiting to collide. I drove through the night, radio off, just the hum of the tires on asphalt. Every mile felt like reclaiming a piece of my soul. Every turn took me further from the pain, closer to who I wanted to be. I remembered Laura's words, "I've got you." Simple words, but they carried strength. I wasn't alone in this, and that thought, it made me braver. At dawn, I reached my first safe spot, a small, quiet apartment I had rented months ago. It was modest, bare, but it was mine, and for the first time in years, I breathed without fear. Days passed. I started rebuilding. Small jobs, small victories. I even sent my father a note. No anger, no begging, just truth. I am no longer yours to control. Simple, direct, crushing. He called, shock in his voice, confusion, anger. He couldn't understand. I wasn't the scared girl at the gala anymore. I had transformed the humiliation into power. My mother sent a text trying to guilt me. I read it, then deleted it. I didn't respond because my silence was louder than any argument. Weeks turned into months. I settled in a new city, new friends, new work, new life. And each day I felt stronger. The daughter they mocked had rewritten her story. And yet, I knew one day paths would cross again, and when they did, I would be ready, not as the girl they humiliated, but as the woman they could never control. Months had passed since I walked away. Months of rebuilding, learning, surviving. And I had changed, not just stronger, sharper, clearer. I got the call on a rainy Thursday, my father's voice tight with anger. "Maya, we need to talk." A simple sentence, but it carried the weight of everything they had tried to control. I agreed. I knew this moment would come. I just didn't know if I was ready, or if I had already become unstoppable. Either way, I had to face them. The restaurant was small. Dim lights, soft jazz, the rain tapping against windows. My father sat at the head of the table, mother beside him, eyes wary, and Ethan pretending calm, like always, like the golden child who never falls. I took a deep breath. Every step toward that table felt heavy, but my hands didn't shake. My heart was steady. I was ready. My father spoke first. "You left without a word." Simple accusation. I let it hang. Then I replied, calm. "I left because you were never listening, because you made me small." Their expressions shifted. Surprise, confusion, a hint of fear. I continued. "Everything at that gala, the jokes, the eyes, the whispers, you thought it was entertainment, but it was a test. A test I failed, only in your eyes, but I passed the real test. I survived." Silence fell. Heavy. Thick. Mother tried to interrupt. I held up my hand. "No, this is my story, not yours." Ethan shifted in his chair. Golden child confidence cracked. I saw the first flicker of doubt. I smiled, small, controlled, victory hiding in patience. I laid out every moment, every humiliation, every word, every laugh they shared at my expense, and I didn't flinch, not once, because I was no longer the girl they mocked. Then I said the part they didn't expect. "I've built a life, a business, a future without your approval, and one day everyone will see who I really am. The daughter you humiliated is stronger than you ever imagined." The air trembled with that truth. Father's hand clenched on the table. Mother's lips pressed thin. Ethan's face paled. The golden child finally silent. And I was free. I leaned back, let them stew, let them face the reality they created. I didn't need to raise my voice. The weight of my calm said it all. I left the restaurant that night feeling whole, not just liberated, but empowered. The girl they humiliated became a woman who could never be controlled. And I knew this was only the beginning of my story. What they didn't realize was that power doesn't come from fear. It comes from rising above it. And now I was unstoppable. The weeks after that night were surreal. I walked with my head high, but inside I was still processing. Years of smallness, of being minimized, had left marks, but now every mark told a story of survival. I started filling my days with purpose, work, friends, projects that mattered. I wasn't just existing, I was reclaiming life on my terms. Mornings began with long walks in the park, the sunlight hitting the lake, birds darting across the water. Simple things, yet liberating. Everything I had ignored before now felt like treasure. I learned to trust myself, to listen to my instincts, to speak my truth, even when it made others uncomfortable. It was scary at first, but the fear didn't control me. I did. Social empowerment. Friends noticed the change. Colleagues noticed the confidence. Even strangers could sense it. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was thriving. Emotional reflection. I thought about my father, my mother, Ethan, and I realized something. Their attempts to break me only made me stronger. Their arrogance had become fuel for my growth. Empowering realization. I smiled quietly because the power had always been mine. I had only forgotten to claim it. Now I remembered, and I wasn't looking back. Foreshadowing inspirational. I started new projects, helping others who had been silenced, mentoring, speaking. Every step forward was a statement, every success a quiet triumph over the past. Subtle suspense. One evening, as I looked out over the city skyline, I realized the story wasn't over. It was just the beginning. There would be challenges, obstacles, but I had learned the ultimate truth. I am the author of my life. Closing, proud tone. So I walked forward, head high, heart open, unshakable. The girl they tried to humiliate had become a woman who could never be silenced. And the best part? This is only the beginning. Final cinematic hook. Because power doesn't come from fear, it comes from rising above it. And now, nothing can stop me. The weeks turned into months, and I realized something profound. The family that tried to humiliate me had underestimated the fire inside. A fire I had almost forgotten existed. I started taking control of my career. Opportunities came my way, some I chased, others I created. I wasn't waiting for permission anymore. I wasn't asking for approval. I was creating my own path. One morning, I stood on a balcony overlooking the city. The sunrise painted golden streaks across glass towers. Wind in my hair, the world wide open. And in that moment, I felt unstoppable. I thought of the night they laughed at me, the humiliation, the betrayal. It used to hurt. Now it fueled me. Every joke, every snide remark, every sideways glance became motivation. Friends, colleagues, and strangers began noticing the change. There was confidence in my walk, calm in my voice, fire in my eyes. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was commanding life. I forgave them, not for them, but for me. I let go of resentment, not because I forgot, but because I refused to let their actions define me. And then I realized this story wasn't just mine. It was every person who felt small, silenced, misunderstood. And my rise could be their signal, a beacon that you can reclaim your power. I thought about my father and my brother. I knew they had expected me to stay broken, to obey, to shrink. Instead, I had grown. I smiled quietly because the control they thought they had, I took it back, silently, consistently, unstoppably. And that is a power no one can take away. I began speaking at events, writing, leading, mentoring. Every word, every action, a declaration. I had transformed my pain into purpose and my life into a statement. One evening, I received a call. It was from someone I had once admired, but feared would never notice me. They wanted to collaborate. My heart skipped. I realized then that recognition didn't come from them. It came from the power I had earned. I walked into every room with calm certainty. The girl they tried to humiliate had become a woman who could never be silenced. Every step forward was proof, every success a quiet victory over the past. And this is just the beginning. Because power is not given, it is claimed. And I had claimed mine. Months had passed since that night, and yet the echoes of my past still lingered, not in a painful way, but as a reminder of what I had overcome and what I was capable of. I had built a life that was mine, filled with choices, creativity, and freedom. Every day felt like a victory, not just over my family's judgment, but over the fear that once held me back. I had learned to trust myself. One evening, I walked along the river. The water reflected the city lights. A soft breeze kissed my face. I could hear laughter from distant cafes. Life felt alive, and I felt ready for anything. I thought about forgiveness, not the shallow kind, but deep, intentional forgiveness. I had released my anger, not because they deserved it, but because I deserved peace. And peace felt powerful. Messages came from unexpected places, people who had witnessed my journey, people who saw the strength in standing up. They wanted guidance, advice, mentorship, and I realized then my story was bigger than me. I had turned humiliation into a lesson, pain into purpose. Every step I took inspired someone else to take theirs. And that was the most satisfying victory of all. Not revenge, not recognition, but impact. Sometimes I still saw them in my mind, my father, my brother, and I smiled quietly, not with hate, but with the calm knowledge that their attempts to break me had only made me stronger, stronger than they could ever imagine. I visited my old apartment once, the place that had once held fear and doubt. Now it felt small, like a chapter that had closed, and I had walked out of it with my head held high. Yet life had its own plans, new challenges, new faces, new tests. But I was no longer afraid. I had become the author of my own story, and that story was only beginning to unfold. So if you ever feel small, if the world seems to laugh at your pain, remember, the power to rise is already inside you. Claim it, own it, and never let anyone make you feel less than you are. Because your story is yours, and it's worth telling. The months after my escape from that night were quiet, too quiet at first. But quiet has a way of revealing things you can't see in the chaos. It shows you who you truly are. I had started to rebuild a small studio apartment, a desk that faced the city skyline, plants, books, a sense of calm I hadn't known in years. And slowly, I began to create. Every morning, the sunlight would creep across the floorboards, golden, warm, alive. I'd make coffee, strong, black, and sit by the window, watching the city wake, listening, observing, planning my next move. The world felt vast again, full of possibilities. For the first time, I realized that freedom didn't just mean leaving. It meant taking control, owning my story, and daring to dream bigger than fear. Opportunities came in strange forms. An email from a former colleague, a chance to speak publicly, not for fame, not for revenge, but to inspire, to show that resilience can turn humiliation into strength. I hesitated. For a moment, fear whispered, "What if they judge you? What if it goes wrong?" And then I remembered that night. I remembered standing outside, breathing, and choosing myself over everything else. That memory, it gave me courage. I stood on a small stage at a community center, lights dimmed, faces waiting, and I told my story. Every trembling word, every tear, every laugh. People listened, truly listened, and I realized then connection is the true power. After the talk, a woman approached me. Her eyes glistened. She whispered, "Your story saved me." I didn't know what to say, because for the first time, I understood. Pain shared isn't shame, it's strength. The days rolled on. I worked on projects, met people who challenged me, learned new skills, and yet a part of me remained alert. Life has a way of surprising even the strongest. Late one night, my phone buzzed. An unknown number, a message. "We need to talk." No signature, no context, just those 3 words. And I felt that old adrenaline, the mix of fear and curiosity. I didn't reply immediately. I thought about what I'd learned, that my story is mine, that I choose how I react, and that some doors may only open when you're ready to walk through. So I set the phone down, took a deep breath, and smiled quietly to myself. Whatever came next, I knew this. I would face it head on, not as a victim, not as a shadow of my past, but as Maya, stronger, wiser, and unstoppable. Because life always has a next chapter, and I was ready to write it. Weeks had passed since the mysterious message, and yet it lingered in my mind, like a shadow following me through every street, every room. I tried to focus on work, on creating something meaningful, but the unknown has a way of demanding attention. I walked along the city streets at night. The lights reflected off wet pavement, cold air in my lungs. Every step felt heavier than the last. I kept imagining who it could be: friend, stranger, or someone from the past, someone I hoped I'd never see again. Fear whispered, "You can't trust anyone. What if they're coming for you?" But a stronger voice replied, "You survived worse. You can face this too." I drew strength from the memory of walking out that night, the night that changed everything. I entered a quiet cafe, rain tapping softly on the windows. I ordered a coffee, sat in a corner, hoping anonymity would protect me. And then I saw her, a familiar face, a ghost from the past, my old friend or my old enemy. She smiled, too wide, too knowing, like she had secrets she wanted me to discover. My stomach churned. Memories of betrayal, humiliation, and hurt flashed through my mind. I clenched my fists under the table, reminding myself to stay calm. She walked over, sat across from me, eyes locked on mine. "We need to talk," she said. Same words as the message. Heart racing, questions exploding in my head. Why now? Why me? I took a deep breath. "I'm listening," I said, quietly but firmly. I would not run. I would not shrink. The past had tried to define me. Now I would define the present. She slid a small envelope across the table. No words, just the envelope. Inside, photographs, pictures of my family, my father, Ethan, and me. Moments I thought were private, exposed. My pulse quickened. Questions collided. Why are these being shown to me now? Who sent them? And what did they expect me to do? I looked at her, waiting for explanation, but she said nothing, just watched, smiling faintly, like a storm about to break. I realized then my past had a way of reaching out, of forcing me to confront things I tried to leave behind. And yet, I felt ready. Not because I knew what to do, but because I had survived before, and I would survive again. She leaned in closer, whispered, "This changes everything." And just like that, the calm I'd built shattered. I didn't know if I was about to fight, run, or finally uncover the truth. All I knew was that my life was about to shift again. I straightened my back, eyes forward, heart steadying. Whatever was coming, I would face it, not as someone hiding in the shadows, but as Maya, strong, resilient, and unbreakable. The morning sun hit my apartment like a spotlight. I could still feel the weight of the envelope from the night before. Photos, secrets, the past creeping in. But today, I didn't feel fear. I felt purpose. It was time to take control. I prepared myself carefully. Clothes simple but confident. Hair pulled back, eyes forward. Every detail said, I am ready, not just to face them, but to redefine me. The entering the arena. The family gathering was at the same hall where it had all begun. 200 faces, expecting the same performance, expecting me to play small, expecting me to flinch. I walked in calmly. Every eye caught mine. Whispers, surprised glances. They weren't used to me standing this tall, and I knew it. I let them notice it. I reached the front, placed the envelope on the table, opened it carefully. The photographs spread out like the past itself, and then I spoke. I know what you all think of me. I know the stories you told, the jokes you laughed at. But I've realized something. You do not define me. A long pause, eyes wide, silence in the room. The kind of silence that carries weight. Power shifts without a word. I've seen the way secrets are used to control, the way fear keeps people small. But I am not small. I spread the photographs carefully, showing the truth to everyone. This is the past, and today we face it. My father's smile faltered. Ethan looked away. Mom's hands trembled. I felt their power weaken, because the power they held over me was gone. I had reclaimed it. You laughed at me. You humiliated me. You thought I would stay small. But I am not your joke. I am not your shadow. I am Maya. The room was silent. Shock, confusion, anger. I let it sit. I didn't need to yell. The calm was stronger than any outburst. Then I turned to the crowd, 200 witnesses, and I said, softly but firmly, this ends today. My story is mine, and it is stronger than your ridicule. Heads nodded, some eyes welled up, some avoided mine, but the point was made. I picked up my bag, walked out. No tears, no shaking, only steady steps, each one echoing confidence, power, and freedom. Outside, the city hummed with life. The sun warmed my face. I realized something beautiful. The past can haunt you, but it can also teach you to rise higher. And today, I rose. This is not the end of my story. It is the beginning of the life I choose. Strong, fearless, unstoppable. I am Maya, and I will never let anyone define me again.